Now we're going to quickly talk about who's the best number 6 to wear, or the best player in the history of the GAA to wear number 6. I threw it out on Twitter the other day, and as ever, people have flown in with the comments here. Shaunie Mcmahon is one that's mentioned an awful lot here. John Keane mentioned, Kieran Carey, Brian Corcoran, Shaunie Mcmahon again, Bobby Ryan from Tip, my own town of Borrisoleigh there, Kieran Carey again, Keady, Corcoran, Stephen O'Brien in football, Ken McGrath, Carl Mulligan, Rebecca Sheehan, Tony Keady. What do you think? Who are you leaning towards when you think of best number 6s? Yeah. And let's not name someone who's normally number 5 and we've seen him in 6.
I saw Brian Whelan mentioned there. I'd say he played about 4 or 5 games. I'd say he played 4 or 5 games for Offaly centre back, but he was always 5. Shaunie Mcmahon would have been the one that would have stood out to me. It's funny, a lot of it is when you're growing. I think you remember a lot of, like, when you're growing up. Who do you remember when you were growing up, really? And I just remember him dominating games. I remember him hitting the freeze and the high stance with the hurl. The hurl was always up around the neck, and it was when 65s were hard to score. I think he scored 4 of them in the 95 All-Ireland. And he was just a real dominant force. And then on the flip of that, the 2 guys that played around the exact same time, obviously you remember Kieran Carey's point that he got when he had 6 on his back. And you remember just how dominant he could be in a game and how much of a live wire he was as well. The 6s, I'd say, you're going to fondly remember are the real old style 6s, real dominant centre backs. When the ball in hurling anyhow, when the ball was put down on top of them, and this fella would just come out of a cloud of hurls with the ball and burst out. Brian Corcoran would remember fondly in that breath too, even though he's probably only there for a couple of years with Cork, having spread his time between wasn't he hurler of the year at cornerback in 1992. Yeah. Then he ended up out at centre back, and then he came back at full forward, but. Probably be Shaunie Mac for me, I'd say. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm leaning that direction too. 10.97 says Sean McMahon. 99 points for Clare when scores were much harder to come by. First 3 points of his first All-Ireland at 22, 1 from play. First man of the match. And then Joe Murakartik says, has there ever been a better centre-back in the world, in quotation marks, said Mihailo Murakartik in commentary back in the day in extolling the virtues of Shaunie Mcmahon. And there is plenty of Shaunie Mcmahon love there. So I think, and there's actually an interview with Shaunie Mcmahon that Jared Brown did before, so you can check that out in the playlist. Are we going to go with Shaunie Mcmahon?
Yeah, I think so. Just on that, like you said, I love the way when someone says Ken, that we all know who. I just, that's the sign of how much of a legend someone is that when you say Ken, that you know Ken McGrath and more than Tommy or Henry. I go with Shaunie McMahon from Andrew Sullivan comes in there with Pat Delaney. That's obviously that iconic Offaly centre back who started the move for the Johnny Flaherty goal in 1981. From a football point of view, great centre backs. Kieran Mcgee would probably be someone that stands out. Again, it's when you're growing up. I remember in Carty Bookmakers in Borough, I had €3 at 7-1 on Armagh to win the All-Ireland at the All-Ireland quarter-final stage. And I remember following their progress and thinking that £24 or €24, whatever it was at the time, was the biggest sum of money that I'd ever get my hands on. But he would have probably stood out back then. He probably would have stood out for me as a footballing centre back.
Interestingly, like probably not too many people would say Keane O'Sullivan, but he won an awful lot of All-Irelands at centre back for Dublin. So, and you wouldn't just roundly dismiss him, but a lot of people would say, well, maybe he was spare man an awful lot of the time, but you can't just ignore his role. Seamus, I suppose Seamus Moynihan's more of a fullback. Would you look at him more there?
Yeah, the thing with Moynihan was you would have loved to see him playing centre back for Kerry every day, but a lot of the time they weren't able to afford to play him there because of deficiencies they might have had in the full back line. And he was a brilliant fullback and a marauding kind of fullback when he could be as well. I would have loved to see him playing centre back an awful lot more.
Geez, Graham Canty was a good joke.
Graham Canty was in fairness.
Carl Lacey.
Big fan.
Maybe not quite long enough.
Do you know who I loved actually, and it's a bit left field, is Tom Kelly that used to play with Laois.
Very good.
I thought he was brilliant around, what are we talking, 03, 04, 05. He played international rules as well, a brilliant player. Yeah.
There's an awful lot of players we could pick from there, but I think if you stumbled on a good one there by saying Geezer, he was a very, very an absolutely top player. So yeah, let's stick with him for now. Shaunie Mcmahon, Tony Keady, Henderson for Kilkenny, Kieran Carey, Ronan Curran, Ken McGrath. Centre back has changed so much since the last decade. Not as important as it used to be, but still vital. And I saw one lad saying Declan Hannon winning 3 All-Irelands at centre back. Brick also overlooked. So kills me to say this week, but Conor Gormley was outstanding from a Mayo supporter in the Horrors. Yeah, he's another guy who won an All-Star in that position. If you enjoyed this piece of content, please follow us on YouTube by hitting the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the page, which helps the channel grow. And if you want audio podcasts, go to patreon.com/OurGame.